Okay, everyone. Today I've got my first indie author that I'm going to be interviewing. This is the first interview I've ever done with another author, so this will be pretty cool. Forgive me if I stutter a lot and kind of go all over the place because we're just going to see how this goes. So I have Andrew Johnston here with me today. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Hi, there are you?
Good. So you are over in Eastern time. You said Pennsylvania, right?
Yep, Pennsylvania, southwestern Pennsylvania.
Nice. So Andrew, you are a fantasy author, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of my following seems to be fantasy authors, and honestly, I am not like I don't really write fantasy. I actually don't read a whole ton of fantasy on my own. I have been just to like support indie authors, but it's not usually something that I go into. So I actually would have a lot of questions about just fantasy in general and kind of your experience with it, just because I don't personally know a ton about it. Like I've watched Game of Thrones, I've
Hmm.
actually read the Song of Ice and Fire books, but overall it's a genre that I'm not super familiar with in terms of details. So I know that I was reading your website and just kind of going through your social media, and I know that you were initially inspired by Song of Ice and Fire, like in your mid-20s, right? And that's kind of what got you
Yep.
into fantasy. Cool.
Yeah.
So like what is it about fantasy that tends to appeal to you? I know like people have their different reasons, whether it's kind of like I feel like you can get kind of a good escape from the real world with
Mhm.
that in a positive way. So like for you, like what is it about fantasy that kind of drew you in to begin with?
It's escapism. It's living in a completely different world. It's a lot of it's built on emotion and hope and so forth. The granddaddy of all fantasy authors is J.R.R. Tolkien, and I watched the movies before I read the books and all that, and I got started from there, and I thought to myself, well, as many fantasy books as I've read, I want to see if I can create a form of escapism, people that doesn't follow what others have done. I removed the chosen one, I removed special weapons and stuff like that, and created my own, world weapons and magical creatures. Like magical creatures is a big thing. Like when I reintroduced my series, the Iron Frost universe, I have what's called a storm bison, which is basically it's a bison and breathes storm clouds out of its nose, and then storm clouds create rain, and if it's really cold out, it turns into snow. And I actually found out apparently bisons in real life, they go into the storm versus many other animals. They don't like shy away from actual storms, so it fits very well. And then I just have other stuff and so forth. Like I have a combination of a fox and a cheetah and so forth, called a she fox, and so on. I just what really brought me into it was just the fact that I could do things that most genres couldn't. There was a stipulation of reality, but only along the lines of like, can he actually do that backflip like that or whatever it is? But I could go beyond that.
I have to say, I'm envious of fantasy authors that you kind of have that you can do that. Like you really can suspend disbelief. Like even sci-fi, because I mostly write sci-fi, you do sometimes get held to like scientific standards. Like it doesn't have to necessarily be accurate, but it has to be believable in some way, or else there's
Mm.
always those people who will be like, oh yeah, well that's futuristic technology, but like it doesn't really make any sense. But like when you deal with magical systems or kind of fantastic creatures in a fantasy world, I love that you really can just run wild with it. And I'm jealous a little bit of that.
It leaves a lot of flexibility.
Absolutely. And I love that you make your own fictional creatures, because I talked about that once in a video, like kind of inventing a like a fictional species or something, because not everyone does that. Like, you know, a lot of people will stick with kind of iconic sort of mythological creatures for theirs. So I love that you actually went ahead and started inventing your own. So I also love what you just said about you remove some of the things that are kind of overdone in that genre to try to make your book a little bit more. I don't want to say like original because I don't want to insult someone who does include these, but at the same time, it is a little more original. It's
Mm.
not necessarily something that people have seen before, and taking out the chosen one trope is
Oh yeah.
definitely a big part of fantasy. And even gets into sci-fi too. Like Star Wars has a very strong chosen one kind of um you
Mm.
know story to it. So like what kind of things would you say I mean, in addition to having fictional creatures that haven't really been seen before, like what other kinds of things did you feel maybe weren't a good fit for you, like that are typical in fantasy? Like, do you include magic in yours, or
Yes.
is your magical system like, is it kind of conventional, which is fine, or is it a little
Mhm.
bit different than what people are used to? I actually don't know a ton about the magical systems that are in fantasy. I just know a little bit more about kind of the magical systems that people use like in real life, like the
Mhm.
kinds that are part of like neo-pagan religion and stuff like that. But in terms of fantasy, I don't know a whole lot. So could you go a little bit into like how magic works in your universe?
Well, a lot of it is it's elemental magic. A lot of it is that because I have this group of people called the Ruto, and they come from several different clans, and their clans, and that's for the first book. But there's more than one set of Ruto out there, and a lot of what their magic has involves elemental magic, and one specifically, the Knoll. They don't use elemental magic, but they're kind of the underdog of all of them of the Ruto, to where their bones are made out of iron. They could be 90 years old and have the stamina, strength, and speed of an 18-year-old, and so forth. And their hair isn't hair; it's feathers, and so forth. So sometimes even if they get like a buzz cut or something like that, it just goes down to like the quills
Mhm.
and everything. And then there's also like the Skarns who like ice blue skin, and they can organically generate ice, kind of like Iceman from the X-Men. And then with my magical creatures and stuff like that, all of the ones that can fly have the ability to fly as fast, if not faster, than an F-15.
It's
So it's
awesome.
I'm
I
all
love
about
that.
speed.
That's cool.
So
I like that a lot. So in terms of, I want to give you, we're talking about your book, but I want to give you an opportunity to kind of give the people who are listening or watching like a little bit of a hook. So could you give me a little bit of a description of, no, like a summary of kind of what your plot's about? What's your story? I know kind of the background elements. I know the creatures and the races that are in it. Like what's the hook?
I go in chronological order with my series and so forth. I will actually have a novella that comes out first, but I'll describe the first book of the series called Prim Noir. It's about a woman scarred by a dragon fire seeking self-acceptance and the downfall of a dictator. This one includes all of what I mentioned so far, including a character that if you read his description, you'd be like, "Oh my goodness, he put Clint Eastwood in there with spaghetti western
It's
and
awesome.
everything." And he even has the thin cigar and the attitude of it. And you'll see plenty more than the storm bison in that. You'll see what's called a cobra swift, which basically has like angel wings and the whole cobra look to him, but it'll have like an orange hair on the body and moves at like Mach 2.
Mhm.
And she'll use that to find who will help her heal her, because she's very ashamed of her outer appearance, and that's why she's so secluded. That's why she has to go fight the dictator and bring him down, because she has to bring herself out of that and accept herself to bring this guy down before he makes all of her country um a dictatorship. And that's the start of what's called the Iron Frost universe. Now, as far as what I'm going to try and release in September, it's called The Discarded Knight. It's about a Victorian era teen sent to another dimension to save his family from ceasing to exist. It's a portal fantasy. um some of the two of the characters are actually inspired by the actors in Game of Thrones, Charles Dance and the guy actor played. Tyrion, whose name now escapes me, Peter Dinklage.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Peter.
kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I kind of got inspired by their back and forth relationship in Game of Thrones to a certain extent, but it's in Victorian era England, and it's basically this character who's overcoming what makes him sets him apart from others, while simultaneously helping his brothers and sisters from disappearing from all memory in the world because they're all plucked from different time periods and so forth. So I have that in the wings. That's going to be the first that's going to come out, and then throughout 2025, I'll try to release the rest of uh my Iron Frost series.
Nice. So you just described it, I think you said a portal fantasy, right?
Mhm.
Could you explain what that is? Because I feel kind of ignorant. I actually don't know what that is. So there may be some people who don't know who are watching.
I'm just discovering that myself. I actually like even when I was putting it through when I was putting the Discard Night through Drafted Digital, which is very good for indie authors from what I hear. And I've been exploring and I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I
Mhm.
just do this? Forget the whole querying thing.
Mhm.
Um, not to knock traditional publishing, but I'm just like after 10 years and then discovering this, I'm like, oh, this I'm like anyway.
Yeah.
So Portal
Trust me, you'll
Fantasy
have a
from
lot of sympathetic people who are watching.
yeah.
That's pretty much all of us here.
Oh yeah, like I'm like thinking to myself, this is so much better. I have control and so forth and everything. I can release things at my own pace and so forth. And I also don't, I mean, I don't have to worry about my worry is less. But anyway, so Portal Fantasy, from what I understand, it's like sending one character to another dimension or even time travel. In the case of the Discard Knight, there's a bit of time travel, but it's more in the sense of reference more than anything else. But then the portal part of it is going from Victorian era England to this mountain where it contains all of the main characters, brothers and sisters. And that's where he goes to um, help them before they, disappear from memory, disappear from all of existence, and so forth. And it's when you read the novella where you find the portal is pretty darn cool. And I actually found out that I could market it as a gas lamp fantasy or something like that, which apparently
Okay.
that is Victorian era England, or late 19th century would be like 1890 all the way up to
Mhm.
1899, and then early 20th century, which would be I would say like 1900 to 1912,
Yeah.
something like that.
So something that has kind of it's like a certain aesthetic to it, right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I like that. So that's a novella, and then Prim Noir is like a full novel.
it's a full
I've
novel. Yeah.
I've written like I say short stories just because it's easier, but like if you're going by those sort of like word count classifications, they're technically novelettes, like whatever that
Mhm.
is. So I've written like long form and then like sort of shorter ones, and I have a hard time with the shorter ones, honestly. So like in your writing experience, like did you have an easier time? Maybe not easier, but like was it just a little bit more in your nature to write something that was longer, or did you find the novelettes to be a little bit easier for you? Like, I know that they're shorter, so they probably won't take as much time, but it's like I tend to be long-winded, so it was hard for me to kind of edit things down to be a
Right.
reasonable length. So, like, how about for you? Like, how was that for you?
Well, I mean, I've always been shooting to write novels. I never wanted to write a novella, but I wanted to give it a shot. And the novella actually was written several years ago, I would say 2018, and I had all kinds of things done to it. It almost landed a literary agent, but um, and ultimately was rejected. So I let it sit for a while. So writing in shorter form was difficult, but I figured if I can make something as concise and trimmed as possible, then that would be a true test of my ability to not ramble or not go in several different directions. Um, but yeah, so it was a test. The first novella was a test. I am more of a long-winded 90,000 to 100,000 word story. I mean, usually people expect high fantasy to be or epic fantasy to be up into the 120s and so on,
Mhm.
or Sanderson to where you could build a village with his books because they're huge.
Yeah.
but yeah. So for readers though, most of my stuff will be within the 90,000 to 100,000 range. But as far as dropping down to this novella, um, it wasn't difficult. I really drew from a lot of personal experience, and
Cool.
that's what helped it make it short
Mhm.
because I could focus on those key issues in my life that led up to certain points. Like the main character is autistic like myself, so I try to do a lot of autistic representation in my books and everything.
Okay.
And for him, in a time period where there's no understanding of those kinds of things,
Yeah.
there's no understanding of that kind of mental health and so on. If anyone tried to understand it at all, it would be a miracle. But it was to answer your question. Basically, it was a test of my ability to be concise. I actually do write short stories for what's called Altered Reality magazine, and so I have two parts of a three-part short story with them right now. So I'm actually getting better at it.
Cool. Yeah, I have a lot of
I'm
respect
actually
for that
getting much
because
better at it.
I don't think it's easy. And I think that some people will, they hear short story and they think, oh, well, it's short. It must not have taken that long. It's like, no, no, it really does. Sometimes it's easier to write
Oh yeah.
something that's a lot longer in a way, because you have a lot more space
Mhm.
to kind of get a message through. But not everyone is good at or used to trying to be super concise about things. So um,
Yeah.
hats off to you. It's tough. So, you're mentioning having autistic representation because that is your own experience. So, I think a lot of people will be able to relate to not that specifically necessarily, but the idea of kind of putting your own experience into your characters, even if it is a genre that is not just like regular real world. So fantasy, you always see like diverse races and whatnot, like dwarves and elves and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
you don't always see more real world groups represented in that way.
Mhm.
Like I've talked before about having bipolar disorder. You don't usually see psychiatric type things, so far as I know, in fantasy or sci-fi. Like it doesn't tend to explore that. You might find it in general fiction a little bit more.
Mhm.
But I have a lot of respect for the fact that you managed to bring that into a genre that typically excludes it. Do you write a lot of like do you find that you kind of can help yourself sort through your own kind of, I don't want to say issues, but like your own life and kind of sort through your own experience by putting it into a character? Like I know
Mhm.
that as I've written things out, um, I've almost used that character as a way of sort of giving my own self advice. Like it's not always easy to follow your own advice when you're dealing with problems, but like as I'm writing it and that character is sort of representing me, I'm almost working through my problems or my whatever's going on with me while I'm writing it. So, did you find that kind of alleviated any of the maybe stress or anxiety that might kind of surround you in certain ways, or like just help you kind of sort through and understand your own experience a little bit better by doing that, or is it it's sort of separate from your own experience in that way?
Well, I had to basically go back to my single digit to teen years to really place myself in any of the stories because in 35 years I've been conditioned to handle a lot of what I couldn't handle back then. So I really had to go into the past as far as sensory issues and poor eye contact and
Mhm.
obsessiveness and about things and letting things get to me, which they still do. But I just dove back as far as I could into my past, and I pulled that and I put that into my novella and my series. Now with like Prim Noir, I really put a lot of emphasis on sensory issues and so forth because you're in kind of a Middle Ages ish environment. So it's more going to be sensory than anything else, and people are a little bit more straightforward in that time period. You have to guess with that. Obviously, I haven't lived in that time period, but
Mhm.
now with the novella, uh, that was more on the intellectual level as far as certain things. Like I will, let's say you start talking about something, I'll focus on one thing in that conversation, and you'll keep on going, and an hour will go by, wherever it is, but my brain will still be back at that one spot. I included that in the novella,
Mhm.
so and I went from there with that. And that's how I well, not attack, but went in that direction.
Cool. There's definitely I only started getting into this is related, I swear. I only started getting into TikTok like not too long ago, maybe in the last year. And as I meet more people on there, I'm seeing that there is like a fairly significant I didn't use this word until I got on there, but like a neurodivergent community, especially in the writing
Right.
community, way more than I would have realized. So I think there's a lot of people that you could really connect with or who would connect with your writing when you're delving into experiences that I think that authors don't always touch upon. You don't see it represented too much. I think when you do see it, it's usually in movies, and it's almost always like the non
Animated.
yeah, that, or like if it is like a live action one, I feel like they always end up making the autistic character or someone who's on the spectrum being like severely autistic and nonverbal, and they don't usually show the side of that spectrum that is not like that, like where
Right.
so I feel like there's a lot of people, especially on TikTok, who hopefully will see this, that would really be interested in reading something when they've probably not read too many things that can represent them and can that they can relate to in that way. So a lot of respect to you for
Thank
touching
you.
upon that, because I feel like it probably would have been a lot easier to just kind of go with the conventional stuff. So
Yeah, I couldn't go
yeah.
conventional. I had to. It's one of those things to where they have that word. I don't know if it's a word or a phrase where it's reruns. I didn't want reruns. I didn't want people experiencing reruns of things. It's like, how many more Viking things are we going to see? How many more Middle
Oh, I
Ages things we have to see?
know.
How
Yeah.
many more of this and this and this and this are we going to see? Well, with my stuff, at least with the Iron Frosters, you get a little bit of that and so forth and everything. But as you progress through the series, it's a mixture of things, a combo of things. Like book two jumps back to the ancient world,
Mhm,
um, and then when I finally finish book four, you'll see more of a kind of horror, dark fantasy sort of element because I have three separate continents. One's like the kind of what I call the continent of blasphemy, and then one is the ancient world, and then one is the more modern world. The more modern world is where you get introduced to first. You
mhm,
see horse and buggy, you'll see the magical creatures and so forth from there. And I wanted to be able to have readers dive into three different sort of areas versus
mhm,
just being like, oh, we're going to have this one thing throughout the whole five to six, seven, eight, nine, 10 books. It's the same world for the most part. If you get anything different, it's in a dream or it's on an island or it's in an alternate reality. Um, so I wanted everybody to have a taste of ancient, modern, and kind of horror-ish sort of thing.
I love that. And by the way, Continent of Blasphemy is a badass name. So
Mhm.
I love
Oh yeah.
that.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm gonna ask you a couple more things. Your novel, you're now self-publishing. You had started with a like with a publisher, now you're moving into self-publishing. So I'm not gonna I know that you have some like legal limitations of what you can talk about. So I'm not gonna ask you any specifics about what happened and why you decided to self-publish, but what has been like how's that experience changed for you? Like self-publishing, was it kind of what you expected it to be? Was it better than you were expecting? Is it like what's the difference, like, or in your experience between the two of them?
Oh, traditional publishing, you mean it's like you're promoting and you're writing. You're submitting your stuff into the publisher and so forth. And that, I mean, there's a lot more to it, of course, but that is the way I experienced it. There were some things that I'm like, well, I didn't know you had to do this. I didn't know you had to go into Goodreads and claim your book or whatever it is. Otherwise, somebody with the exact same spelling of your name would claim your book. I'm like,
Mhm.
that was pretty fun trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
But when I switched to self-publishing, I had already done a notebook's worth of research on self-publishing. I was actually keen on self-publishing before I even was at the publisher I was at right now. And then I just said to myself, let's just give this a try. Let's give this a try. Let's see. Let's give this traditional publishing thing one more shot. So I sent it in, and I ended up signing in December, and now I'm on the track to self-publish. And as I said earlier, I'm using Drafted Digital. I'll use BookFunnel and other things like that, and I'm not going to rush any of it. I want quality and so forth. So actually, I mean, September's where when I'd like to release the novella. It could get pushed back. I'm not really sure, but I mean, the fact that all I need now is a cover because it's already
Sure.
been professionally edited. It was edited back in 2018 or whatever it is, and like I said, it's been sitting for all those years and all that. Um, all I need is the cover and some other little things, and then I can release that. But I think self-publishing, if you want to have results faster, if you want to control things, and yes, you will make more money, but there are stipulations to that. You know, this one platform takes this much percentage, this platform takes this much percentage, but that's business. You can't go into it thinking to yourself, well, I want all this, and this. No, you're going to do business with whatever, whomever. You have to expect to either lose or gain or make good investments. And you have to treat it as a business. Yeah, we all have our issues with capitalism and so forth and everything, but otherwise we wouldn't be able to self-publish or traditionally publish without it.
Hmm.
I mean, unless you have monumental strength to carve into a stone slab and you have the ability to throw it great distances, good luck. Because otherwise you're going to need the truck, you're going to need all that fun stuff to distribute.
Hmm.
So I think self-publishing is going to be good for me. I think it's good for a lot of people, and there's plenty of successes that were in the self-publishing side of the industry. And if I can, I want to try and remove the stigma and everything that
I love that.
exists.
That's the goal here on this channel.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And that was thank you for what you just said because it was very, very realistic.
Mm.
I've seen other channels that talk about self-publishing where it's very like get rich quick kind of scheme stuff. And I really think that that is such a lie to tell people who are getting into it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I feel like everything you said has been exactly what my experience in self-publishing has been too. And I think a lot of people would experience the same thing, and that people have a lot of similar motivations into getting into it in the first place. Um, so yeah, one thing I had never seen, I actually had never seen this before. Random thought, I should have brought this up earlier. On your website, you're able to, people can join your, do you say ARC team or ARC team?
Art team, yeah.
ARC team. That's cool. Can you just very briefly tell people what that is? I think people will like this idea a lot, because I had never really thought about it before.
Well, art
Real
team is
quick,
basically you get to read if you get to read the book before it comes out. And BookFunnel is, you know, I might as well be a big billboard. I'm advertising for
go
everybody,
ahead, do it,
but
do it.
yeah, with BookFunnel you can do it, and there's other sources and so forth. Basically, you're giving the book in like a PDF form or what have you to however many people are willing to read and review it before the book comes out, and it helps you, the author, build up a good reputation with your book. Ideally, you want on Amazon and other platforms 25 to 50 reviews. I didn't have such luck with my debut novel whenever I was with the publisher and so forth. But you know, people. That's another thing too is you have to be aware that if you don't haven't had a book out yet, people are taking a risk with you, especially if you have a series. Now I had Prim Noir already out. Will people want to go through and review it this time around whenever I try to release it next year? Maybe, maybe not. Or maybe I can, you know, find the people who did it before and see if they want to do it again. But you have to understand that you're not just taking a risk, the reader is taking a risk. And with ARC reads and so forth, those readers are also taking risk and saying, well, this book may be good, this book may be bad, and I'm going to review it. And if they don't want to review it, that's fine. And if they do, that's even better. Because here's the thing, you're not paying these people.
Mhm.
And I mean, I wish I could. I really, really,
Yeah.
really wish I could. But the thing is, you don't want paid reviews. Don't get paid
Mhm.
reviews.
No, 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 no.
Because
Yeah.
that paying some people to review is like, well, here, you give me $100, I'll give you a good review. No,
Mhm.
don't do that. Don't do
No.
that. That's bad. That's
Mm-mm.
that's like putting chum in the water for the sharks to follow you so that you can harpoon the shark and say, "Hey, I got a shark," and so forth.
Agreed.
Which my mother did that when we were in Florida for Thanksgiving. She got a shark. I'm like, I get this itsy bitty little thing, and you get a shark. And then my aunt got a shark too, and it's like, and
Yep. That's what pay reviews will do to you. So,
exactly, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, don't pay for reviews and so forth. But yeah, that's what ARC is. It's
mhm,
reviews before the book comes out. You send them out the digital form, everything. And if you have, I mean, if you have the money, send them a physical copy and
mhm.
sign it. Make sure you
Yes.
sign it.
Yes.
And I will not kid you. Shipping isn't cheap. I think I sent something to Ottawa, Canada. I can't remember how much it was, but it wasn't like, what I was paying for Pennsylvania or North Carolina or Ohio. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Andrew. This was a good one. I'm really I actually I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna have this be publicly said. I want to do a part two with you. I feel like there's a lot more I could have talked about with you. So you're
absolutely.
so if
Name the time.
Andrew is willing, you are gonna see him again on my channel. So
I am totally willing. I'm
uh,
totally willing to share my experiences. I'm totally willing to discuss things. You ask me anything. Just don't ask me to wax your car because I'm no good at
mhm.
waxing vehicles.
Nope, nope,
So,
nope. Well, thanks again,
I am a
Andrew.
custodian though, so I can clean your house.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome. I have 3 dogs and I have to clean it like every 3 minutes. So,
I
so anyway, you can check out Andrew's website and all his social media. I'm going to put links in the description, and then his novel Prim Noir will be available in the future, and I encourage you all to check that out, as well as his novella that will be coming out. So, thanks again, Andrew, and I'm going to talk to you soon, okay?
absolutely. Thank you very much.